First day in John Deere. Objectives. The objectives of this training is to make known the essential rules and procedures to work safely in the facilities. It is also to promote the integration of the contracts and the preventative culture of John Deere Iberica. Access to the facilities and general rules. Rules in case of emergency and evacuation. It is essential to work safely at the factory. All factory workers must know the location of the meeting points and the different evacuation routes of the facilities. The evacuation and passage routes will be free of elements that hinder the exit in case of an emergency. Messages will be broadcasted over the public address system, in which steps to follow will be indicated. Walk quickly, but do not run. Here is the map that indicates the different meeting points here at the factory. In case of a serious accident or emergency, contact the following telephone number: 9149-58333. In the event of a minor accident, contact your company's insurance company. These images here show the first aid kits and stretchers that are inside the factory and the AO external automatic defibrillator equipment. Access to the facility. General rules. Here are the rules to require and use within the factory. Respect the safety regulations and signs found throughout the factory. The maximum speed allowed in the perimeter of the factory is 20 kilometers per hour, and the maximum speed allowed inside the factory is 7 kilometers per hour. Make sure to use the roads and pedestrian crossings on the journeys throughout the factory. It is important at all times to observe the circulation routes both inside and outside, due to the high volume of forklifts throughout the plant. Within the use of mandatory protective equipment in the factory, the use of safety footwear, glasses, and safety gloves are very important. What do you think could happen if a metal shaving jumps out at you and into your eye? In the factory, there were several accidents in which, due to not having used protective glasses, a shaving has been embedded in the eye of a worker. This worker and workers have been treated by the medical service, but almost had the risk of losing their eye if they did not wear glasses. It is also important to keep in mind that the use of earplugs within the factory are recommended. There are areas with high volumes of noise. Earplugs are available at all entrances to the factory. Remember, use gloves inside the cells as well, especially in assembly lines or in carrying out any work that involves some risk. Environment and the segregation of waste. Within the environment and segregation of waste, it is important to locate the different containers and clear points throughout the factory. Here we can see a photo of a clear point in the factory of gears and shafts. It is prohibited to pour toxic and dangerous substances into the sewage network, and all containers of chemical products must be identified and labeled. Risks with the environment and the area. The areas here are the most common risk areas, the following being falls at the same level, falls at different levels, falling objects due to a collapse, footprints or footprints on objects, running over with vehicles and machinery, as well as shocks and blows from objects and machinery, and cups with objects and tools. Also very important to note the working together of different activities. In addition, within the environmental risk area, with a higher level of risk, these areas are the painting areas, the oven areas, the cells such as shopping areas and transformation areas, and the center of warehouse for products. Also important to remember the importance of being safe around the different methane tanks. Some cells, like the opening ones, contain grid dust. This dust makes the area very explosive and is therefore prohibited to carry out radial cutting and welding in this area. With that being said, let's focus on the first area, protocols for electric works. When working with electric works, it is very important to remember that there must be an authorized and qualified worker acting as a preventive resource within the installations. It is necessary that the area be signed as well as delimited so that all works are done safely. Let's take a moment to look at loto, the block and condensation of a machinery when work is being done. It is very important to remember that these jobs must be done and must be known of within the factory. It is important to remember and follow the rules and always listen to the preventative resource. Protocol for hot works. In relation to hot works, it is also important to remember that this job has its own procedure. Inside the factory, it is mandatory to use a non-inflammable blanket and different types of screens to help with welding, to protect the worker from any types of sparks or flames that may be produced. It is necessary to have an extinguisher at the site. Once the jobs are finished, it is important to review the area and make sure there are no flammable elements between 1 to 3 hours after the job has been done. The area must be verified before and after the combustible material is removed. Remember to sign the area and to do the area within the delimited space. Remember, always have the extinguisher at the site. ATEX works, explosive atmospheres. The procedure for explosive atmospheres here at John Deere is the SEG 0906. It is necessary to have a preventative resource at the site and that the escape plan be understood and noted. It is not allowed to access these areas with electronic equipment, such as cell phones or laptops. Ventilation is very important and mandatory. It must be either natural or forced, and there must be constant measurements of the area with the explosimeter to make sure the job is done safely. An extinguisher must be available at all sites. Work and driving of forklifts. The maximum velocity to use a forklift within the factory is 7 kilometers per hour. In the case of a forklift not having frontal protection, it is mandatory that the driver wear his security or her security glasses at all times. The use of a seatbelt is mandatory. The use of cell phones and headphones or headsets are not allowed. Remember that it is essential to pay attention to the surroundings. Do not transit while driving a forklift through the areas designated for pedestrians. And remember that in the area, all work must be delimited. Work with heights. The use of height lifts. The use of height lifts is very important. The preventative resource must have be noted, and also there must be an escape plan. It is necessary to sign and to delimit the area being worked at. These areas must be accompanied and taken care of by the workers. If there's going to be movement of the machine, the height lift, it is necessary that there be someone accompanying the person driving and that the area that is going to be driven be delimited. Always verify the position of the platform to make sure it is stable. It is mandatory the use of helmets and vests with a line at all times while on the lift. Protocol for confined spaces. Confined spaces also requires a protocol. It is necessary for the preventative resource to be at the outside of the confined space and for there to be an escape plan, noted and understood. It is important to signalize and to delimit the area being worked at. Measures should always be taken around to assure the use of oxygen with explosimeters. Natural or forced ventilation is mandatory, and there must be constant checking that they are both correct and working properly. Activities and when they coincide. It is important to know that when there are two different contracts working together, the concurrence of activities is important to be done and to have a reunion between both different contracts that are going to be doing activities in the same area. A coordination meeting will be held to report the risks generated by these activities. The preventative resources of the contractors, the John Deere job managers, and the area production manager or supervisor must be present at this meeting. What is the intended reason for this meeting? Well, this meeting is used to help inform all the workers in the area of the risks that are generated among them to help avoid accidents. In addition, these same workers will be able to know what the area is like and the risks that may follow. It is important to hold these coordination meetings before starting any type of work. Thank you very much for your attention.